What if you could?
Yes.
And that is the place that I'm going. If I don't ask, if I don't pitch, if I don't go in search of it, it's always going to be no. So what if I could be standing on that stage? What if I could be the founder of this multi-million-dollar nonprofit? What if I could, help people all over the country? I won't if I don't try.
Yeah. Welcome to Superhuman Selling. I am so excited to bring you today's guest, and this is a really special episode and conversation. This is actually the first one that we're recording live at our new studio in Maine. I've got Dr. Winn here with me. So Corey, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So happy to have you.
Incredible to be here.
This is special. You're the first one to record here in this space. And I think that you are also creating many firsts in your family, in your life, as a mom, as a doctor, as a She Sells certified consultant and coach. And so today we're going to be talking about, as a woman, making your own rules in business and what that looks like to define success on your own terms. So tell me a little bit about why you're so passionate about this and how this became something that's really important to you.
For so many years, I was told this is how it had to look. This is what you had to do for success. This is how you had to hustle and grind. I mean, I watched my parents work hard for so many years and wondered why that doesn't feel good to me. Why, what's wrong with me that I can't do it like them? And then I met you and you said, you don't have to do it like that. How do you want to do it? And it exploded this world of, you're exactly right. I don't have to do it like that. This is how I want my life to be. This is what I want it to look like. And let's go. Let's make it come.
Yeah. One of the things that we talk about so much in this brand and the consultancy is questioning everything. So I know for so long in my life, I just assumed that because someone else said, this is how it works. These are the rules. These are the limits. These are the constraints. Like growing up, I was raised by an incredible, mother and father, but my mom was a stay-at-home mom. And so I hadn't necessarily stopped to think for myself, I can have a very successful, very lucrative business and be a phenomenal mom. And I think a lot of times we don't stop to question the rules. And so we've talked a lot about that. And I know that that's something that you've done in your own life. So tell me what that means for you when we talk about questioning everything you've been taught, questioning assumptions, deciding to make your own rules. What does that mean to you?
I remember distinctly sitting in one of our coaching sessions and thinking about something that my dad had said my whole life. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Meaning that wealth can't come easily. You have to work hard. And I remember saying that to you, and you immediately looked at me and you said, how's that belief system working out for you? And I was like, oh, but it wasn't. And it made me realize it doesn't have to be hard. It can be easy. Obviously, there's so many incredible women in our community who are making incredible money, bringing in so much wealth for their families, not hustling, not grinding. And it was that first tip of the iceberg of, it doesn't have to be hard.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be too good to be true.
Yeah. I think even just the awareness of that belief, like if it sounds too good to be true, it is. And how many of us have been taught that? And how many of us, I think, resist success, resist ease. And that's one of the things that I've learned to really question in my own life is I think every time we go to another level, every time we set a new income goal, and I know for myself, like my experience is every time I relax, every time I allow in more ease, every time I allow in more, like even just the feeling of more abundance in my life, more money flows. And so it's never about it being harder. It's never about grinding. And yet we're taught that. So what are you doing? Because you've got your daughter who is she 8 now, 9?
She's 10.
Turned 10. Okay, I was thinking she was, okay, in my mind, she's so much younger. She's 10. He is 2. I said, you're not done yet.
So what are you, and I think it would be really helpful for you to speak, especially to the moms, to the parents out there, those who are wanting to create new belief systems for their kids. I remember you sharing the story of driving around, looking at big houses, like looking at mansions with your daughter and helping her vision those and helping her actually step into that possibility for herself. So as a mom, as maybe a dad is listening, as a parent, how do we start to change the belief systems for our kids that maybe we were raised and ingrained with that just aren't helpful?
Just recently, I made the decision to bring my daughter with me. I was actually on the news last week, and I wanted her to come with me to see. No women in my family have ever been on the news. Nobody
Yeah.
has created their own wealth,
Yeah.
and I want her to know that that's possible. And so when we were driving around that neighborhood, it was Christmas time, and we were in the car with my parents, and my dad was like, "Oh, all this wealth, all this space." And it was very critical. And I looked at my daughter and I said, "How fun would it be to decorate every different room a different way? Like, how cool would it be to have that many rooms to decorate for Christmas?" And she
Mm.
was like, "Yeah, mommy, that would be so fun." So trying to help her question everything and also take ownership.
Yeah.
We have a lot of conversations about not being the victim of our circumstances. And,
Mm.
she comes home and she's like, "Well, this kiddo made me do." I'm like, "Well, hold on. They may have done something, and how can you react to it? You can ask for help, you can move your space, you can do these things." And she's like, "Oh, you're right." And it's really empowering for her too to take that ownership.
Absolutely, absolutely. It reminds me of us talking about your doctor title, and I hope you're okay if we
Yes.
but I think this is a relatable example that a lot of our listeners can hear. So I remember when you first came into the community, you weren't really owning your doctor title. And to hear your interview on the news last week and to hear you introduced as Dr. Corey Winn was really, really powerful. So what was, I think if you could speak to first, maybe the resistance even around owning that title, because how often, and I'll give a little context and then I'd love for you
Yeah.
to speak to it. I want for you listening, think about how often do you deflect compliments? How
Mhm.
often do you deflect praise? How often do you not feel comfortable taking up space, being seen, owning your accomplishments? Whether it's you've got a doctorate, whether it's you launched a business, you did a great job on on a recent social media campaign that you ran, right? So taking up space and owning who we are, I think is a big conversation. It's a big shift that also I've seen opens you up to greater abundance. But I'd love for you to speak to what was the resistance that you felt at first around owning
Yeah.
the title of doctor?
I think a lot of it was just, we talked so much about this yesterday, being too much, being too big, being too bold.
Yeah.
And also in a healthcare setting, depending on where you're working, if you introduce yourself as doctor, that can be confusing to some patients.
Mm.
In the hospital setting, the doctor is the person who knows their tests, they know their imaging. So I think there's a little bit of resistance in the healthcare space, and just living a life of not quite thinking I was quite good enough to own that. And one of our beautiful consultants last year was like, "You don't use that?" And I thought, "Oh my gosh, it's been almost 15 years and here I am. And yes, I should. And
Mm.
yes, I can take up space. And yes, I can be bold. And yes, I earned that.
Yeah.
So let's go. Let's move forward."
What was that like for you the first time you really started owning it? Did you feel uncomfortable
Oh,
actually
absolutely.
doing it? Yeah.
Absolutely. It was not a shift overnight. It took a little bit of work, but
Yeah. Well, one of the things I love how Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about the universe will only give you what you feel worthy to receive.
yes.
And so I think we can all kind of notice our own edges in terms of our willingness to take up space, our willingness to claim it, our willingness to say, "Yes, I did. Thank you." And it's not arrogance. And in fact, I think that ego is about like it's insecurity, it's arrogance, it's all of those things, but it's about having a place of gratitude and appreciation within yourself for, yes, this did happen. Thank you, right? And it's that ownership energy. One of the things that I've seen you do over the past year and a half that you've been in the community is really evolve and transform. And we talk a lot in She Sells and Superhuman Selling about stepping into the fullness of who you came here to be. And I think about your journey of first coming into the community, and the intention was completely different from what you're doing now, which often what happens when we're on the path of evolution. But when you first came in, you were, focused on growing a health coaching
Mhm.
business. And I think at a certain point pretty early on,
Oh, yeah.
you realize, okay, this is not actually the path. And you went on a journey. You've gotten certified as a coach and consultant, as She Sells and Superhuman Selling coach and consultant. And you also launched a really incredible nonprofit about 9 months ago now, almost 10 months ago,
What?
I'd love if you could, let's share about what the nonprofit is, and then we'll talk about the journey of launching and building that.
So the nonprofit is the Carl Edward Foundation, and Carl was my uncle. He was 19 when he injured his back and ended up with a spinal cord injury for 55 years of his life. And he's one of the major reasons why I went to physical therapy school, had a love of neuro, and is where I am today. Um, but there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes when you have a spinal cord injury that people don't know about, and so much need that isn't covered by insurance. So often my patients who I see regularly, my uncle did without,
Mm.
just because of lack of access. So I started the foundation. The idea came in December of last year, and a week later he passed away. And I thought, all right, well, I have to do this now. There's not a choice. So our goal is to fund grants toward equipment, home modifications, vans, all the things that people with spinal cord injuries need, or people with progressive neurological diseases that they need above and beyond what insurance pays for, so that they can continue working, so that they can go places with their families, so that they can maintain their dignity and independence both within their home and the community.
Which is so beautiful. And you're hosting your first event, your first live event coming up here in about a month,
Yep.
right, in Colorado. What has the evolution been like for you seeing yourself as someone who could launch and then lead a really, really influential, impactful nonprofit? You know, that identity shift that comes along with that, to go from your health coaching business and what you were doing to coming into this material and feeling inspired to build and create this nonprofit to help change so many lives. But there's an identity shift that accompanies that. So how have you, to me, it ties back in with ownership. We're talking about, like, I'm owning my greatness. I'm owning the fact that this is what I've done. I'm owning my vision. But how have you made that shift and really stepped into the spotlight where you're now speaking, you're on the news, you're leading the nonprofit, and you seem so natural doing it, but I know there's a lot of inner work that comes into play when we do that.
When you step into Elise's programs, whether it's through coaching one-on-one, whether it's through group coaching, you learn to embody the woman at her fullest expression of herself. And I realized that I wasn't doing that. And I've seen over and over that I'm not thinking big enough and rising to that occasion. And so I think now, we just talked about this the other day, but what if you could?
Yes.
And that is the place that I'm going. If I don't ask, if I don't pitch, if I don't go in search of it, it's always going to be no. So what if I could be standing on that stage? What if I could be the founder of this multi-million-dollar nonprofit? What if I could, help people all over the country?
Mm.
I won't if I don't try.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that is such a powerful question, because the brain, when we have a new goal, a next level goal, so often, what does our brain say? It says it goes to all the things that could go wrong. And it evaluates based on current and past circumstance as well, not future, not potential. And so to consciously reframe and ask the question, but what if you could? It changes everything. It changes the paradigm. And I know that you're using that too for your patients. You're using it for the nonprofit. Speak a little bit to the vision and some of what you're doing to actually change the healthcare space and landscape with your work.
I think one of the big things is asking that question, what do you want? I mean, with my clients, that's what I ask. With my patients, that's what I ask, because I learned from my uncle so many years ago. As a new PT, I thought I knew everything. I walked into his house and said, you should be doing this, you should have this cushion, you should be doing these exercises. And he sat there so patiently with his big blue eyes, and he nodded and he listened. And when I finally got off my soapbox, he was like, let me know how that works out for you when I've been doing this as long as I have. And there he went in his wheelchair. And I thought, that's so true. And what I've learned from you is there isn't one way. There's so much expertise to pull from. There's so many different avenues. So what do you want as a woman, as a mom, as somebody in healthcare, as a patient? What's the most important thing for you? Okay, now let's come together and make that happen. Because it may not be at all what I think that you need.
Yeah. I love how big you think and how open you are to possibility. And I think this is something that I want to encourage each of our listeners to lean into. And this is something we spoke about yesterday as we were doing our kickoff for graduation week here for you and for our first class of consultants, was surrendering your conception of the limits that are in your mind. And that's been, in my own experience, again and again, just the more that we say yes and are available, and the small voice in our head that says, "Who am I to do this?" which comes up. I think anytime you're actually playing a big game, like, that's inner child. And I remember speaking to a woman at a speaking event I was at a few months ago, and she was like, "I just want to shut up that voice." And I used to think that way too, but when you're aware, that's actually your inner child. That's your little girl, your little boy, and you don't need to shut it up. You just need to help that part of you feel safe and comforted, just like you would a child who's scared or afraid. It allows you to ascend with so much greater ease and comfort and confidence. But to that point, I want to ask you, before you share where everyone can connect with you and where they can go deeper, if you were to give one piece of advice to Eliza Jane, your 10-year-old, that you think would help her really be set up powerfully for life, what's that one piece of advice that you would want her to know?
To not ever doubt herself or what she wants. That if she wants something, I mean, you always talk about your desires are green lights.
Yeah.
And if she has a desire, if she has a want, if she wants to do something different, to do it. And that the only person stopping her is her.
That's amazing. Well, I know she'll watch this now and then maybe 20 years later too. And say, I think that message will come back to her at a really, really powerful time in her life. I just have a sense for that. And it's beautiful advice for all of us. So Dr. Corey Winn, where can everyone go to connect with you, to learn more about your work as a coach, a consultant, to learn about the Carl Edward Foundation? Share about that.
So I'm on Instagram at Corey Winn DPT. My foundation is thecarledwardfoundation.org, and my website is corywinn.com. Same on LinkedIn at Corey Winn.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on today.
I love watching your ascension, your growth, and I think that you really do model for all of us, especially for high achieving driven women, what's possible when we do question everything we've been taught about what we need to do to be successful. And we allow ourselves to really define success on our own terms and create our own rules there. So much gratitude and appreciation to you.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. To you, my listener, thank you as always for being part of the community. And as we wrap, I want to remind you to trust yourself on your path to success. Remember that your desires are green lights, leading you and everyone around you to a brighter future. I'll see you on our next episode.